In a world of technological leaps, this iconic camera remains a beacon of tradition. Since 1984, it has stood the test of time, continuing to be one of the most sought-after pieces of equipment in the photography world. This is the Leica M6, and in my opinion, one of the best 35mm film cameras ever created. I want to talk about why I've grown to love this camera so much. But before we get to that, what exactly are we out taking photos of? Well, I had the opportunity to ring in the new year up in a small town called Leavenworth, Washington. Leavenworth is known for its German influences from the architecture, the restaurants, and the shops alike. My family and I rented a house about 30 minutes away from the town of Leavenworth, and I spent a lot of my time exploring this beautiful area of Washington, eating good food, and taking a lot of photos with nothing but the Leica M6. Day 1. On our first morning, I woke up really early. Not sure if that had to do with the alcohol that I consumed the night before or because I was uncomfortable in the bed, but either way, I was up bright and early. I was actually pretty happy to be up this early. I got the chance to make myself a coffee, catch up on some editing, while also enjoying this beautiful view the rental property had to offer. Growing up in Oregon, I've always had a little bit of beef in regards to Oregon and Washington and which one's the more Pacific Northwest state, but Washington really showed its views while we stayed here this week. Once the sun came up, we got to see the true 360-degree view that we had for the entire weekend, and it was time to break out the Leica M6. I took some time to load up some Portrait 800 and got to taking a few photographs of this beautiful mountain range we were staying in. Now that we're taking photos, let's talk a little bit about the Leica M6. I have personally owned the Leica M6 for probably about 4 years now, and I have grown to really love this camera. It makes me want to take photos more, and I want to tell you guys why that is. Number 1, the Leica M6 is a classic film rangefinder camera that gained immense popularity due to its blend of traditional craftsmanship and modern functionalities. And I will say that the internet kind of spiraled into shooting the Leica M6 specifically into massive spotlight. I think everyone in the film world kind of knows about the Leica M6 and its notoriety in the film community. So let's talk about some of the key features that the Leica M6 has to offer. The first key feature would be that it is a rangefinder focus system, meaning the Leica M6 employs a bright and accurate rangefinder that allows you to precisely manual focus by lighting two superimposed images. So basically, when you look through the viewport of the camera, there will be two slightly overlapping images. When you move the manual focus ring on the lens, the two images will start to line up, and once the images are aligned, well, your image is in focus and you can take a sharp photo. The benefits of a rangefinder system include precise focus control, longevity and reliability, as well as distinct aesthetic that is known across the photography community. The Leica M6 also provides manual controls. It's fully mechanical, from the mechanical shutter, mechanical wind system. Basically everything in this camera is mechanical, except for some of the light meter features that we'll get into in a little bit. It has manual shutter speed selection, aperture controls, and manual focusing, providing photographers with simplistic yet complete control over their settings. The shutter speeds go from bold mode all the way to 1/1000th of a second. The M6 retains the iconic and ergonomic design of the Leica M cameras, with robust metal body, compact form, and seamless layout of controls. I must say that when I hold the Leica M6 in my hand, it just feels like it was meant to be for a photographer, and I know that's very niche to say because everyone's like, oh, Leica, you're like a film nerd, wear your beanie and drink your coffee, which, don't get me wrong, I do love my coffee. But this camera does make me want to get up and take more photos, which is really, I think, the biggest factor of why I love this camera so much. I've gone through a lot of film cameras in my days, and I have to say that this one in particular makes me want to get up and go out and take more photos. So I think that's a huge benefit with a lot of cameras, because I think sometimes first it's the want to go take photos and then the camera second. With this, it's the camera first and then the want to go take photos with the camera. So I think that's really interesting and something to note about the Leica M6, and honestly all the Leica cameras for that matter. My M6 model is the TTL version of the camera, which means through the lens light metering. So basically metering through the lens of the camera as opposed to a separate light meter outside. So it really is as true as you can get to a light meter within a rangefinder camera. And metering with this camera is as simple as looking through the rangefinder viewport and changing your aperture or shutter speed until the red arrows either go left or right, and you are left with a red circle in the middle of your readout. It's kind of confusing, but if you see here, you can see that when I'm overexposing, I need to move one way, and when I'm underexposing, I need to move the other. And when you do so, that red circle in the middle will light up, and then you will be good to go as far as your light metering. With that being said, I do tend to overexpose my film. I think that film loves light and I like the look of overexposed film, so I try to benefit, and also my model tends to underexpose a lot of my images. I'm not sure if that is normal with a Leica M6 model, but I do see a lot of my photos when I expose exactly for what the camera wants me to do. They do tend to look a little bit underexposed, and I think with film I'd much rather have them be overexposed than underexposed. The loading system on the M6 is second to none and honestly makes me want to shoot more film. It has a very specific loading system that was made famous by the Leica M6, and in my opinion is one of the highlights of using the Leica system. Yeah, I know loading film really isn't supposed to be that all exciting, but the Leica M6 makes you feel like you're doing something special every single time you load and unload the camera. And I think that's really important. It makes you want to continue using the camera once you're done with a roll, and once you're finished with a roll, it gets you excited to be able to load a new roll back in there and start shooting again. The Leica M6 is compatible with a wide range of Leica mount lenses, offering photographers the flexibility to choose from a variety of focal lengths and characteristics. My personal favorite lens on this camera is the 28mm. That has become my favorite focal length. I do have a 35mm Summilux that I use a lot as well, and then a bunch of other random third-party 7 Artisan, Light Lens Lab, and a few other companies make third-party lenses for the M-mount system, and I do have a couple of those as well. Lastly, despite being a film camera in an era dominated by digital photography, the Leica M6's timeless design and enduring quality have kept it in demand among photographers and collectors. In fact, this camera became so popular that Leica actually re-released the M6 in 2022 with brand new models being created and released. These features all collectively contribute to the Leica M6 reputation as a classic and highly sought after film camera cherished by photographers for its simplicity, reliability, and exceptional image quality. Now let's get back to the trip and actually take some photos with the Leica M6 so you guys can see what it actually looks like in the field, because I can talk about the stats on the camera and the quality and all that stuff, but you guys want to see what the photos actually look like. So let's go back into Washington and take some photos. We spent the first night of our trip driving out to the town of Leavenworth, Washington. Leavenworth, Washington is a charming Bavarian-styled village nestled in the Cascade Mountains of the Pacific Northwest. Basically, it's a German town in the middle of Washington, which is really cool and really random, but it kind of makes sense. When you're there, the architecture and the mountains around you makes you feel like you're kind of in Europe or in a different part of the world, and it just kind of works, and it's really fun, and the staff is also in on it, so people are dressed differently, and it's like a whole experience in itself. So if you guys have a chance, definitely go check out Leavenworth. It was my first time being there in the winter, and it was really cool. The town is renowned for its Bavarian-style architecture and colorful facades, timber framing, and flower-filled window boxes. It creates an all-immersive experience reminiscent of a European alpine village. The downtown area is filled with boutique shops, restaurants serving Bavarian cuisine, breweries, and wine tasting rooms. There's also a bunch of museums and art that you can go look at and purchase, and it's all in all just a really fun experience. And I took some time to kind of walk around and we'll limp around and photograph this whole area with the Leica M6.
POV.
POV, see the screen?
Yeah.
It's a great photo, I'll zoom in for you.
Nice.
That night on the drive back to our rental was just as pretty as the town of Leavenworth itself. I mean, we kind of drove back during blue hour, and I was shooting out the window of our car with the Sony FX3 24-70, and I got this blue streak filter for a moment, and it really made the lights from the other cars coming, as well as the lights in the distance, just look very cinematic. Basically, this lens filter makes your camera do a fake cinematic light blur like you would see on anamorphic lenses. I thought this footage was really cool. The next day was New Year's Eve, and we woke up to some intense cloud coverage. We drove down to a town called Ellingsburg. Ellingsburg is a small college town, and while most of the town was closed because it was New Year's Eve, we found a really cute breakfast spot as well as this incredible bookstore. Out of the whole trip, one of my favorite parts is going to this really small bookstore and just looking at some of the books, as well as how compact and crammed this bookstore was. It was a bit claustrophobic, but it made for some really cool photos, and we took some time to kind of explore some of the books. I tried to purchase a book. Unfortunately, there was no tag on the book, so I couldn't get it, which was kind of weird. I felt like I'd travel back in time into the store like I was back in the 70s.
Focus. I got you. I got you.
Ready? 3, 2, 1. Cute. Later on that day, my sister had just gotten a camera for Christmas, and me and her decided to head out and explore the rest of the afternoon. We drove about 20 minutes north from our rental property, and we found some sunshine for the first time that day. We took a few different back roads, pulling over when we wanted to and just snapping pictures along the way. This cool old barn was just off the highway, and we had to pull over and photograph it. We also saw a sign for a historic old town, and we decided we had to go check it out.
Shiver me timber.
There really wasn't much there, but there was some old buildings and old architecture, so we pulled over and took some of these photos as well. Now, Portrait 800 and the Leica M6 really held its own with these images. I really loved how easy it was to use the camera, and I was beyond happy with the final product when I scanned these into my computer. Once we felt we had photographed enough for the day, we set to drive back into town, back to our Airbnb, and post up for the rest of the night. While driving back, we stumbled upon this super creepy, I don't know if it was leftover Halloween decorations or if this is just how people decorate their house, and we saw these creepy mailboxes all over, and one of them had a sign that said, "How fast can you run?" So as one would, we pulled over and took some photos. That night for dinner, we had steak and potatoes for our New Year's Eve dinner and hung out for the night until the ball dropped. So is the Leica M6 for you? Well, I've been using the Leica M6 for the past couple of years, and although the camera has its quirks, I think personally for me, it's the best 35mm film camera I have ever used. And that's a lot to be said because previously I was all about the Contax G2, and while I really do love the Contax G2 and what it can do with photography and how it can influence your photos and how you take photos, I personally have grown to love the Leica M6 over that camera. Based on its mechanical features, robust build quality, and second to none image quality, it just makes me want to take photos more, and I think that's way more important than having like a really technical savvy camera. Now, don't get me wrong, this camera is very expensive. Just the body alone is going to set you back a few $1,000s, and then you're going to have to get a lens on top of that, which typically is even more expensive than the Leica M6 body. So that is something you have to look at, and I think if you're looking to get a Leica M6, you really want to do your research and figure out what body is right for you. You don't necessarily need the Leica M6. I mean, even if you went and got a Leica M3, you can still use the same glass that is on the Leica M6, on the Leica M3. So it kind of is weighing your differences and seeing where you want to go. With that being said, there are ways to get into the Leica system that aren't as expensive, but it's going to have to take a lot of research and time waiting to find the right things for you. This is a very expensive piece of equipment, and I am very, very lucky to have one in my possession, but I'm also a professional photographer, and I've been doing professional photography for the past 10 years. So it took me a very long time to be able to work up not only the finances, but the courage to purchase something like this. Like, you look at this and you think, why are you buying a film camera that is that expensive? And for me, it's because this camera makes me want to get out and go take more photos. And honestly, to me, that's the most important thing. You don't need this camera to get that feeling. There's other cameras that can give you this feeling. Basically, that's it. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. I hope you learned a thing or two about the Leica M6 and why I love this camera so much. Besides its amazing image quality, it's just a really, really cool camera all around. The history of it's really important. If you guys have any questions about the Leica M6, leave them down below. I will try to answer your questions as the best of my ability. I don't know everything. I'm still learning every day, so don't get mad at me. But I appreciate you guys for watching this video. If you have made it this far, please be sure to like, comment, subscribe. It helps the channel out greatly. And I will see you guys in the next video. Bye.